if we're asking today, should wolf whistling be a crime? Should it be finable? I used to joke more flippantly, and especially a lot of my mum friends, because, you know, beyond a certain age, beyond a certain point, it's quite nice to be paid a compliment, that if I walk past a building site and I'm not, you know, no one goes, all right, I'd go round again just to make sure. I actually feel too flippant about that now, given the climate that we're in, that we have to be so careful not to now get so sensitised by everything, things which are harmless, things which are okay. If I said to you, Philip, you know, we're coming up in the lift, I went, God, you look rather nice, Philip, you know, your bum looks nice in those jeans or something, would that be finable if I was just joking with you?
But this is not a case of men saying, oh, you look lovely, darling. This is pulling on the strings of sexism to undermine and degrade women. They are not saying, oh, you look lovely. It's not a compliment.
Aren't they saying, oh, you look lovely, just in a whistle?
To be honest, Philip, I wouldn't know, because when these groups of men, and they are generally groups of men, wolf whistle or holler at you across the street, you don't really know what they're saying. You just sort of put your head down and keep walking as fast as you can. It makes you feel very uncomfortable. It's degrading, and I do generally think that, by and large, they're making derogatory comments at women. And I think that repeat offenders of this, because we're not talking about wasting police resources and, oh, I walked past a chap at St Paul's today and he whistled, you know, I'm going to call the police. I'm not talking about policing it in that respect. And I think
that is what they are saying.
Yes, but I don't think that women are going to go and call the police if it happens to them once.
I'm sure they will.
I think that's the point of this law, actually, that this proposed
It's the point
law.
of the law being in place, yes, but how many women are actually going to implement that law to the extent that they make the point because they've been whistled at?
What is the point of having a law in place if you don't use it?
It is sexual harassment. Yes, it's verbal, but it's sexual harassment.
So we should call.
How do we define whether or not that makes someone feel uncomfortable? If you are repeatedly being made to feel uncomfortable, should you not be given the tools to stop that happening to you?
But the word repeated is very important here, because, yes, if it's repeated and repeated, you can go and then eventually you can report it. We are talking about, what we're actually talking about here is whether wolf whistling or guys, catcalling a woman walking past the street should be a criminal offence and should be finable.
Well, if it's sexual harassment, then yes, because it comes under that.
But defined by whom is that sexual? If it's a one-off...
It can only be defined by the fact that it makes somebody feel uncomfortable. There's no other way.
So we should call every time, then?
I'm not saying you should call every time, but if you are being made to feel uncomfortable because you're being verbally, sexually harassed,
of course,
should there not be a means for you to put an end to that? Is that not
how is this policed? Because if somebody's at the top of a building site and you hear a whistle, A, how do you know who it's come from? How do you prove that it happened? I mean, that seems crazy to me.
I think, for me, when we come to the legal side of this and making this into some kind of law, there are three main problems here. The first is any kind of enforcement. Exactly. What's the proof? I walked past some guy, he made me feel uncomfortable as I walked down the road. How can we possibly enforce that and prove that?
How can these women prove that Weinstein said to them, oh, I'd love you to take your top off, darling?
That is a very big problem, and I'm
sexual harassment is hard to prove. Unfortunately, this is sexual harassment, and I just don't think women are going to call the police because one bloke's whistled at them.
Well, then there's actually no point in having a law that says wolf whistling is finable.
Well, then let's
remove
all sexual harassment laws apart from rape, then. Where do you draw the line?
Let's remove the ones which are the ones that actually, because there's so many massive problems going on out there that we need to be able to deal with.
And there are people in prison costing us 30 grand a year, but we're paying for them when
Wouldn't it be... Just hang on a second. Wouldn't it be better if we were to address this way earlier and say, right, OK, let's start talking about this in school. Let's start talking about respect in school, respecting women, respecting each other.
But this will encourage respect, surely. Because if men think, oh, I can't just go, right, love, every time a girl walks down the street, there's going to be more mutual respect.
One of our viewers here has got in touch on our Twitter page, Sandy, and she says, and what about women? Because women wolf whistle at men too. Will they also be fined?
Do they, though? I've never heard a woman...
I think a group of women going...
And I am definitely not sexist, but yes, if it makes a man feel uncomfortable, I think he should be able to make use of that law too. But let's be honest, Holly, How often have you walked down the street and whistled at a man?
How often
Well,
have we
I
asked
haven't,
men
but I mean-
if they have? How often have we
Because
actually
you're a
asked men?
respectable woman. You're not...
But it happens.
It
happens.
does happen. It absolutely
Okay.
does happen. And to come back to your point there, Philip, about education and stuff like that. So I've got 3 teenage children and another on the way, but I think one of the good things that's coming out of all of this is that we are talking to them much more. And it's not about men, only men harassing women, and it's about how men treat women. It's about how women treat men. It's all of this kind of stuff. It's totally almost impossible to enforce. It's very, very difficult
But
to
is it
define.
not encouraging mutual respect
And by
between
the
men
way,
and women?
one aspect that is very rarely talked about at the moment, and I hope will, is false accusation. If you have laws in place where people can just make calls and accuse people left, right, and centre of something which actually you could have let go, you could have let wash. The devastation to somebody's life of a false accusation is enormous, and
Yeah.
we mustn't forget that. And there are many men out there, particularly, who have been falsely accused of things whose lives are totally destroyed by that.
That
We've been
is
very
true.
careful.
Honestly, I'm not the kind of person that would normally endorse something like this. But I have to walk past a group of builders on a daily basis on my way into town who make me feel genuinely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I have started driving this route, which takes me 10 minutes as opposed to a
To avoid
2-minute
them.
walk.
And that
because I want the
doesn't seem
ground to
right.
swallow me up.
Well, yeah, no, that's
We're gonna have to-
a
we're gonna have to
point
leave that
very,
there,
very
ladies.
well
Thank you
made,
both
both
very
of you.
much.
Thank you very much.